You're listening to the Culture of the Backstep podcast. Today we have on Trevor Williams, and we'll be interviewing him kind of a little bit about his past, his time in the fire service, and about his invention. Trevor, you want to start off by telling us a little bit where you come from?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. Excited we were able to make this happen. Yeah, hello to all your listeners. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about who I am and what I'm all about. 34 years old, married, 2 little baby girls, and 1 and a 2-year-old. And I live out here in the Los Angeles area. I work for Los Angeles County Fire Department out of West Hollywood. Been there a little over 8 years. And before that, I did 4 years of volunteer for the city of Sierra Madre. Been in the fire service most of my adult life, whether it's volunteer or career, and decided I wanted to be a firefighter pretty early on. I grew up as a missionary. I'll talk about that in a sec, but I was able to do the Fire Explorer program when I was 15 and a half. They allow you to start training out here with LA County Fire. So from almost the last, almost 20 years, I've been involved in some way, some form or another.
That's awesome.
But yeah, a little bit about my upbringing. I was born on the East Coast in Virginia. Lived there for about 4 years before my family decided they wanted to go to Africa and be missionaries. So this was a big change. At the time, I was an only child. I have 2 younger sisters now, but when I was 4, it was just me. And we packed up and moved to a country called Zaire. And it was called Zaire at the time. It's now called the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we were there during a civil war. So a lot of civil unrest going on. If you've seen the movie Hotel Rwanda, we were there during that time where I always mess up the names, but Hutus and the Tutsis were at war. That was turned into a big deal, and a lot of other countries got involved. And the hardships you hear about Africa and like the child soldiers and all that stuff, that was kind of like forming and starting to go on while we were living there. So it ended up becoming too dangerous for us to stay in Zaire. So after a couple years, we moved to Johannesburg in South Africa to cool off and try and wait out some of the war. Unfortunately, South Africa was dangerous in its own way, a lot of gang violence and just different challenges over there. So we had little panic buttons, and we weren't supposed to be out by ourselves, and carjackings and robberies were very common. And we didn't find this out till later, but apparently the family that lived in the house before us had been killed in their home, and that's why we were able to get that house. So
Wow.
Out here in the States, you're supposed to disclose that information, before you sell a house or people move in, but over there, they don't care. So yeah, after not too long, we tried to go back to Zaire, and at that point, the name had changed to DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. And we went back for a little bit, but it was still too rough. So I ended up evacuating out of there, and we moved from Africa to Connecticut. And in Connecticut, that's my mom's side of the family. So I've got some grandparents up there, lived there during a few of my middle school years. And then from there, parents got the calling again and decided to move to the island of Haiti. And at that time,
that must have been a really big difference, not only in like culture, but probably like in weather, going from South Africa to Connecticut.
Haiti's pretty hot, and then the East Coast, it has all 4 seasons. So, and I like that. You get your snow, and the autumn, fall time is very pretty, and then it's muggy in the summer. But the bigger culture shock, I think because I was older at this point, was going from like upper middle class New York, Connecticut, New England area to the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, which was Haiti. And it was a total culture shock. And I was kind of in like my more impressionable years as like a 12-year-old, where my whole world was the friends I had in Connecticut and just my small little ecosystem was like kind of wiped out from underneath me. And now I'm like fearful for my life. And there's like, you hear gunshots and fighting all the time and rioting. And we have a security gate with barbed wire around it and a guard dog. And it's just a whole different world, really. So for your listeners, at the time, nobody knew what Haiti was. It's a little bit more well known now. But Haiti and the Dominican Republic make up the island of Hispaniola, and it's about 565 miles south of Florida in the Caribbean. Yeah, it's just it's a really tough place and has lots and lots of needs. They're always getting hit with disease or hurricanes or famine, and just there's a lot of poverty, a lot of violence, and it's not run well either. So while we were living there, the government was being overthrown. The president at the time, his name was Aristide, and he was being ousted. So the country was rebelling against him, and he eventually had to take off. And then there was no leader, and just gangs were running wild and making roadblocks out of dead bodies and setting stuff on fire. And there's most kidnappings per capita in the world while I was living there. So just a crazy place. And we were there to do emergency relief work through World Vision. My dad was working for World Vision, both in Africa and in Haiti. And a lot of people have heard of World Vision because they sponsor like a kid. They'll help a kid eat for like $30 a month or whatever. But that's like one small tiny thing that World Vision does. And what we were doing was like nothing related to that. It was like education and clean water and housing and just a whole bunch of stuff. So that's why we were out there. And then again, it got too bad. Like it got too dangerous for us to stay. So that's how I ended up here in California. They told us go to LA. There's a World Vision headquarters there. My dad can continue doing some work out of there. We'll try and get you back to Haiti in like 6 months or so. But for me, 6 months turned into 18 years, and I'm still out here.
Like so California?
I do. It's beautiful. You know, there's lots to do. I don't necessarily like how it's run. I think, you know, there's a lot of mismanagement of money, and there's like a big homeless issue, and it's just, yeah, it kind of gets out of control sometimes with just like Hollywood and you know how it goes. So, but as far as a state goes, it's a very pretty state. The weather's great. There's lots of nice cars and fun things to do. Good fires. We get, not that any fire is good, but we have a variety. So we have brush fires. I work in one of the high-rise cities. Hollywood has a lot of high-rise buildings, Sunset Boulevard, and our tallest high-rise is 32 stories. So that's its own dynamic style of fire. Wow. And then we have a lot of commercial apartments and residential as well. So you get
in our district, we have like limitations. We have nothing over 3 stories. So our biggest structures are 3-story apartment complexes, and that's as high up as we go. So I'm sure that you add 10 times that you guys get a lot of exercise walking up and down the stairs.
Yeah, it's very humbling. I haven't fought a fire on like the top floor of our tallest building. That would just be, that would be so brutal. But yeah. I've done like 8 to 10 stories, and before you even get to the fire, you're just wasted. You're just so tired, and you're breathing smoke in the stairwell on your way up and carrying all your gear up there, and it's brutal. And the same goes for brush fires. I don't have as much experience doing the brush fires, but we've been burning a lot. So they'll send one of our engines from our station out to the desert, which is like an hour drive, and they're getting brush starts every day. And I went up there a couple weeks ago. We got 4 brush fires. Well, we got sent to 4 brush fires. We only made it onto 1, because as soon as you get sucked into one, you get canceled from the others, or you might end up just using all your time up on one of those brush fires. But so we were first on scene.
You guys were there for like hours at a time.
Yeah, it could be a really long. Sometimes it could be like, if it gets away from you, you could be out there for a month. You know,
wow.
So, or they do, I haven't been out on a long one for a while, but I think I think you can go out for like 14 days and then you need a day off and then they can keep you out there as long as 21 days or something like that. But this last one I went on, I hadn't been on one where I was like the first on scene, but we ended up seeing a new started brush fire on the way to another brush fire. So we're like, oh shoot, there's one right here. So we tried to like see if they would let us divert to the one that we're seeing like start, and they let us. Our dispatcher was like, yeah, go try and knock the teeth out of that one or whatever. So we diverted, and I was first on scene. And yeah, that's new because normally it's like I'll get to a fire, it's been burning for a few hours. There's like 100 people on it. I'm not the first. So this was crazy because that's where it's like it gets really exciting and really hard work because it's like this big old mountain's on fire and you're chasing it and you're pulling hose up the mountain that they're pumping water to you. So the hose is really heavy. And plus you're hiking and you're sliding down the mountain while you're hiking and it's hot and there's smoke and you don't have a breather on because it's brush fire. And then before long, these helicopters are flying over and dumping water. And we have inmate camp crews that they're called FSAs, fire suppression aids, and they don't use water. They just use their tools and they'll cut line up the mountain. So we're like working with them. And yeah, it was brutal.
So a big brush fire for us is like 10 acres. We have a lot of farmland in our area. And a big brush fire for us, like one that we're bitching about, is 10 acres. So I can only imagine an entire mountainside being on fire, the difference in hard work. Because I feel like I'm doing a lot of work when we go to a 10-acre brush fire, which I haven't even been to a 10-acre brush fire. I feel like I'm doing a lot of work when we go to a 1-acre brush fire. So I can only imagine how much work you guys are doing when it's 4 times, 5 times that size.
Yeah, well, these get into the thousands. Yeah, it could be thousands of acres. Our biggest one was like 100,000. So I was hoping for, whenever I'm heading into like brush territory, I'm like, all right, cool. Something on flat ground would be fun, like a little half acre. I can chase it or whatever. But once you get a mountain involved, that kind of takes some of the fun out of it. You work really hard to do all that. So you guys get
detailed out of your firehouse to go and fight these brush fires like hours away from your station?
Yeah. Yeah, we can. I've never been sent out of state, but we can even get called out of state depending on like what the needs are.
I didn't realize that. Is it just has to do with like California municipalities or?
Yeah, I think so. We'll be like mutual aid in a lot of the surrounding counties, and it depends if they need us or not. But we have, Cal Fire and Forest Service, and a lot of times they're so big and they're so good at what they do. Like they won't call for us unless they really need us, So, but yeah, we're, as long as you pay us, like we'll come help.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
And it's like our department's huge. So we have like, there's over 3,000 firefighters, that are like at stations and stuff between the firefighters, the paramedics, the engineers, and the captains. There's over 3,000 of us. And then I think as a whole, like the personnel, there's almost 5,000 personnel.
Wow.
So we're big. And we have almost 200 stations and a ton of apparatus that we can borrow and move people around and staff strike teams and send people out on these. So
educate me a little bit about LA County Fire. Are you guys designated to a single truck? Like I'm assigned to an engine at my station. Are you guys designated to a certain truck, or you guys kind of float to what fills the need of the station?
So there's kind of two answers to that. You are assigned to a specific spot on a specific piece of apparatus, because when you can bid a station, right? Like if you want to work somewhere, you make sure they want you to be there. You put in the paperwork, and you're filling a spot, and that spot could be the tillerman on the aerial truck of truck 8 at station 8. That specific spot needs to be filled, and that's your spot. However, most stations will move guys around depending on who's working that day, the skill level, just the needs, because there's so many different qualifications, and you might get somebody from outside your station that nobody's ever worked with before that don't know. how we run high rise, right? So we're not going to put you in a vital high rise role at our station, having never trained with you before. So we might find an easier role for you that day that we know you can handle, and move some people around to make sure that we're the safest we can be, if we get something dangerous, if that
Right.
makes sense.
We're kind of similar in that we have people assigned to the apparatus, and then the captain can kind of move people around as he feels necessary. We run an engine and a ladder truck, so we staff. The engine has 3 on it, and the ladder truck has 2, which I know for you being in a bigger city, that sounds like crazy low staff numbers, but that's super high for us. And so, like, say we run captains and sergeants. So the sergeants are the engineers, and the captain's
Okay.
like the company officer. And sometimes, depending on how the shift goes, the sergeant may be driving the engine, and there may be another sergeant driving the ladder, or the sergeant may be on the ladder, and one of the firefighters may be driving the engine. Like last Saturday, I was driving the engine, and the sergeant was driving the ladder. It kind of depends on whatever the need of the district is at that point in time. So we kind of
Gotcha.
bounce back and forth.
Okay.
We don't have
Interesting.
we're not like tied down to a specific apparatus. If it's in a rural part of the district, the people on the ladder will hop off and get on the tanker. If it's in a more urban area, then we'll take the ladder and the engine, and sometimes we'll just roll the engine and roll super heavy with 5 people on it.
Okay. Yeah, it's good to be like flexible, right? So
Yeah,
you just feel where the needs are at. Yeah, it's like that for us too. The only thing that I guess can be tricky is, since you are actually assigned to a very specific piece of equipment in a specific role, you can kind of pull your card and be like, hey, this is my spot. Like, I don't want to rotate or like work anywhere other than the spot that I bid, because it's mine, and like you can get the
yeah,
union involved and stuff. And like, you can play that card, but you shouldn't. It's better to be like a flexible firefighter and go with the flow and like, make it work. But if you want to be a weirdo, you can do that, and then it makes everybody's life harder. But
So I have no idea about the geography of LA County and the city of Los Angeles. So, like, do you guys run mutual aid with the city, or you guys spread out more? I don't know I know where Hollywood is. I don't know where West Hollywood is. I don't.
yeah, so our surrounding agencies are LA City. We're LA County, which is different than LA City. A lot of people think they're the same thing, but they're not. So LA City surrounds us, and their department isn't quite as big as ours, but they're big. They're pretty big, but they mostly cover just Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles. And the city of Los Angeles is huge, and like lots of fires and just everything. It's a very happening city with like the gangs and the fires and the drugs, and you need a lot of fire stations to handle all of it. And we're basically an island surrounded by a city. West Hollywood has 2 fire stations, Fire Station 7, Fire Station 8. I'm at Fire Station 8. And then surrounding us, LA City, and then Beverly Hills. So Beverly Hills is to our west, and then city is above and below us. So we'll
So do
end
you
up,
guys? Yeah.
we'll end up on fires together. City tends to burn more than we do. So we're always like looking for smoke headers and like trying to scope out a little bit and see if we can get on their fires. Because if they do need us, they will not tell us right away. Like they'll tell us late, so they make sure they get there first and stuff. And they do not like it when we get to their fires first, which happens sometimes. And we try and play nice, but it doesn't always go that way. That's unfortunate. Like I'm all about, let's share the fires and let's help each other out and that sort of thing. But there's a
Right.
little bit of butting heads when it comes to that sort of thing.
Yeah, probably not nearly as bad as Detroit and Highland Park, though. Yeah,
There's like
you hear
fist
about
fights on scene and
yeah,
stuff.
fist fights in the front yard of
It's
the house,
happened.
and then Detroit packs their stuff up and leaves.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
So,
There've been some fights.
do you guys only go to working fires with them? Are you guys automatic on a box, or do they only request you? Like, you don't come out of your district unless they ask.
We can be an automatic aid, and then if that happens, they usually don't use us because they didn't want us there in the first place. But just because we're part of the matrix, we show up. The times we do get to work is usually when we like attach ourselves, or we're doing an investigation where we see smoke and we get there before them, that's usually the only time we get to work with them. On occasion, very rare, they might request additional resource, but they don't like to request LA County at all when they can request LA City. Like if they need more resources, they'll use their own guys. We're the same way. Like we take pride in like our abilities and stuff, so we'll try and cancel them if we can and use our own resources. But let's say you have like third alarm high rise, like we need everybody. So that could maybe be a scenario where the resources are used and wanted.
Gotcha. You guys have a lot of like subdivisions and stuff like that, like residential area, and you're in West Hollywood, or is it all just like high rise, strip malls, stuff like that?
There's very little houses. It's mostly apartments. And then we have a lot of commercial, and then we have high rise.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's very few and far between that we get a house fire. We do get them, but there aren't very many. So I have to go to different stations, and we're allowed to work anywhere we want. So if somebody needs a day off somewhere, I can get with them, and they might work 50 miles away in some other district, and I'm allowed to work their shift, and they're allowed to work my shift, and we can do trades and that sort of thing. So sometimes I'll kind of seek. Yeah, sometimes I'll seek that out if I'm like, I haven't worked in the hood in a while or whatever, like I need to brush up on some of the medical stuff. Like maybe I'll go work in, Inglewood or Lindenwood or something near Compton, and you would get different fires, or they have a lot of house fires. So if I want some house fires, kind of your cookie cutter box fires, that might be a good place to see if you can pick up a shift or whatnot.
So Compton is its own fire department. It's not a part of the city or the county.
Correct. Yeah, they're independent. Yeah, there's a lot of like independent cities out here too, and they'll ask for bids from like the big departments, county and city, and then we'll quote the city like, hey, it's going to be $4 million a year or whatever for us to take over your station. And then it just depends on if the city wants to go that route or not. But we were constantly taking over new cities. We have almost 200 fire stations now, and it's grown, from probably started with like 10 and then 20 and 30 or 40 and just grew and grew. So as more department or more cities like what we have to offer, and it becomes more affordable for us to take over a city's fire service. Every couple of years we'll get a new city as part of our department.
Wow, that's awesome. So how's the culture in your guys' firehouse? I know it's probably different from the Midwest to the West Coast. What's your guys' culture like?
I like my firehouse a lot because it's very traditional in the firehouse culture. I work at one of the biggest houses in our department. There's 39 firefighters split up amongst the 3 shifts, so 13 members per shift. We have 100-foot aerial ladder that we have 5 people on, and then it's part of a light force, so there's another engine that follows that aerial ladder with 2 more firefighters on it, and then we have a 4-person fire engine in addition to that, and then a 2-person paramedic squad. So it's a big house. It was built in the 50s, and we're also the first station to get a ladder truck. There's 32 ladder trucks now, but we were the first one. So in 1950, we got the first aerial ladder. So we have that tradition. We were also, it's a 3-story concrete building with a pole, and we had the first episode of Emergency. If you've seen that TV show, that was filmed at our firehouse.
Wow.
So there's like tradition there.
Talk about culture.
There's been a lot of TV shows actually filmed at our station. There's one before Emergency called Rescue 8, which is like a black and white show. Nobody's ever heard of it, but that was based on our station. And then more recently, a show came out called LA Fire and Rescue, and they filmed at our station for about 2 years, and it was like a reality firehouse show. And so I was like mic'd. I had to go to bed with a microphone on and like just run calls with GoPros all around me and stuff. And with all that work, over the 2 years, we were in the first episode for like a few minutes, and that was it. Because they were at lots of firehouses. So our story was just the first episode. And if you look it up, you'll see me in there briefly. But it's just one of those things that it's pretty interesting working at my house. It's kind of like a fraternity, very rowdy, pranking all the time, loud. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. So going into work, I look forward to it every day. Those guys are my brothers and sisters, and we'd all die for each other. We've all been through a lot, especially on my shift. We've all been there. Like most of us have been there. We've all been through a lot together, and it's a family, you know?
Wow, it's awesome. Yeah, that must be crazy being on TV as a fireman. Like, I'm sure in like LA County, West Hollywood area, that TV goes over so much well or so much better because you guys actually have a lot of people. There's things that are going on. You guys are making calls. If my station was on TV, you'd see us go pick up grandma like 4 or 5 times a day and go to JC or go to the you don't know what JC is. Go to the go to the grocery store. We don't have everything going on like you guys do. So television in the Midwest probably wouldn't do so well.
Yeah. Well, that being said, it did take them a long time to get the content that they wanted. They'd spend the night sometime. They'd have the crew just like posted up in our app bay floor, just kind of waiting because you'd have people with like the big cameras and then like the editors, and every once in a while the producer would come by, and they'd always like end up leaving at like 3 a.m. and like wake us up to like give the mics back and stuff. And then as soon as they left, we'd get the fire, or we get the crazy shooting or whatever, the stuff that they should have been there for. It seemed like they were never there when we needed them. So yeah, it took a really long time. And it was kind of uncomfortable for us at first because we're firemen. So it's like we're going to put our foot in our mouth at some point and say the wrong thing and get in trouble. So we're all worried about that. And they're like, no, you guys are good. Just, say whatever you want. And we're like, no, you don't understand. Like, it gets pretty bad. And they're like, well, your chiefs are going to review everything before it goes live. So don't worry. They'll make sure. And we're like, we can get in trouble with our chiefs too. Like they're going to hear what we're saying.
That was more of the problem.
Yeah.
The chiefs seeing it and then seeing it on TV.
Yeah. So eventually we kind of got used to it and it didn't bother us as much. And we became cool with the crew and everything and trusted them. But, it takes a lot of sign-offs for like a firehouse to like agree to be on the show. Like the department has to approve it. Pretty much everybody in the firehouse has to agree that they're comfortable with it. And there's a couple guys who did not want to be on camera at all. And so they either got blurred out or like they didn't work, at the station that much, or it's kind of weird, like working around some people. And then even the calls that we got, once the call was over, the crew would have to go around and get people to sign waivers and releases. And it's just like, it's a lot of work. So I'm surprised, how much work went into it.
It took them 2 years.
Yeah. But I don't think they're going to renew it, but it did well. It did well. You should check it out, at least the first episode. But I think it was too much work for them to like do it again.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of 2 years, the same firehouse, and they only got one episode worth of content. Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
What are the runs like?
Each episode is like a different station, so you get some guys, in the hood, and there's more interesting. Some guys burn every day, and we don't burn every day usually. So there's more interesting stations out there, but we do have like the big firehouse traditional dynamic that they kind of like to see. So
yeah,
that was cool.
What are the runs like in West Hollywood?
We have a lot of nightclubs. It's kind of I would consider West Hollywood like the closest thing you can get to Vegas in LA. So there's just tons of like parties and nightclubs and just people up late being dumb and overdosing. So that's a lot of what we get. There's a big Russian community. There's a big Jewish community. There's a big homeless community. You get your celebrities from Sunset Boulevard, movie premieres, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like every day is its own brand new day of you see stuff you never thought you were going to see. But yeah, I'd say mostly medical. We get a lot of medical, and then
think it's how
the
99%
occasional
of the fire
fire.
services is.
Yeah.
I wish my department would go to more fire, man, but like, I mean, we seriously go to 99% medical runs. Like, if the tones go off, we're probably going to assist somebody with a medical emergency. It's kind of I guess not necessarily a problem because it's good. The fire prevention people are doing their job, and or fires are becoming less common. But for firemen who want to actually go to work, it's kind of a little bit of a kick in the butt.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to have more stamina when I was like younger on the job. And now after one fire, I'm like, oh man, I love fire, but I don't know if I can do that again in like a day because we just get broken off. After some of these fires, at least, they're like a lot of work. You're there for hours. Then you got to clean all your equipment and stuff. I'm like, I'm good for one a day. After that, I'm like, I'm really earning my paycheck today, you know?
What's your guys' schedule like?
It's 10 days a month. It's like a modified Kelly. They've been trying to go to a 4896, which I want. But it would be on 2 days, off 4 days. And I think that's great because I prefer to be at work a couple days in a row. I save on gas and just knock everything out. And I feel like it's more efficient. But our current schedule, you're never at work more than 1 day in a row. So you'll be like on one, off two, on one, off one, on one, off four, and it kind of repeats. So what I'll try and do is make my own 4896, and I'll trade my days around and try and work a couple days in a row, maybe pick up an overtime, and then take a couple days off, maybe like 5 days off if I can, spend some time with the family.
So we work a modified Kelly. We work one on, one off, one on, one off, one on, and then we get 4 days off. I pick up a lot of overtime, so it's nothing for me to work 36 on, 12 off, 36 on, 12 off, 24 on, and then be off for 24, and then pick up a 24. So I try to work as much overtime as I can, which I like the modified Kelly schedule because if I want to take 4 days off, then I can just take 4 days off. And if I want to take vacay time, I can compound it with the 4 days off. And I took off half the month of July and only used 3 vacation days. So
Yeah.
I like the schedule. I know a lot of people really, really, really like the 4896 schedule. And there was some department that just started a 2472, and then it's a 4890, or yeah, 48. It's 2472, and then a 4896. Like they do 2472, and then they work 48, and then they're off 96, and it just kind of repeats like that. I'm like that seems too complicated for me. I wouldn't be able to keep up with it.
Huh. We do have the best schedules ever, though. Like that's one of the things I love about the fire service. It's like it's flexible, and because we're there 24 hours, I don't know. It's hard, but it also can make life like easier, from just being able to knock out all your shifts pretty quickly, and then having that time with the family.
Yeah, only working 10 days a month. I mean, I know a lot of people like kind of have jabs to fire them, like, oh, you guys only work 10 days a month and you guys are sitting on recliners all day, not even doing anything. But even though we're only at work for 10 days a month, we are getting in 240 hours in that single month. So we're not working any less than the normal person. We're
56-hour weeks. Yeah, average person works 40. We work 56 a week, if you want to look at it that way. And most of us, like I had never worked only 10 days a month until probably 2021 or 2022 when I had my first kid and my business was doing well and I was able to afford to like only work my minimum days and then spend time as a father at home and taking care of my wife and stuff. And I was like, whoa, this schedule is cool. Like I'd never worked that. I was still busy and working, but as far as being physically at the fire station only 10 days a month, it was incredible. I was not used to it. And I was like, man, I've been really here a lot more than not that, I don't know. That it was the first time in my life I was actually able to like afford to do that. So it's nice if you can, have that simpler lifestyle and live within your means and pay your bills and that sort of thing. But if the overtime's there, it's always a temptation. And for us, we've been understaffed for a long time. So they force, I don't know what term they use at your department. For us, it's called a recall, where they mando you to come into work, but they force us to come in quite a bit, like sometimes 3 times a week. So it's hard to do the 10 shift a month schedule when they're forcing you to come in.
So we just call it Mando for us. We don't have callbacks or anything like that. So ours is pretty much like for overtime, it's scheduled ahead of time. So whenever the August schedule comes out, because we have people who work part time for us, so they have a scheduling system for the people who work part time, and on that scheduling system, it'll say which one of us full time guys are working overtime on certain days, and then if, say, one of the guys takes vacation, the deputy chief of operations will call in a specific order, like seniority, will call and say, hey, do you want to pick up his shift? And so we'll schedule our overtime ahead of time. So the only time we ever get mandatory is when someone calls in the day before their shift.
I see. Okay. Yeah, we schedule the
So
overtimes a week out, but there's always somebody on vacation or injured or getting sick. It's such a big department.
yeah.
It seems like 20% of the guys are always off for some reason. So it's a lot of seats to fill.
We only have 9 full-time like shift firefighters. So for the most part, we don't worry about, like, there's not always somebody off on vacation or somebody off sick. Now we have like I'd say about 20 or so part-timers who split the part-time. We have part-time shifts that are available every day, so they split those, and if they don't pick that day up, then we have the opportunity to pick it up for overtime. So there is ample opportunity for overtime. I work one of the other backsteppers on one of the other crews. He worked like 112 hours of overtime last month, and I worked probably 60 or 70 hours of overtime this month so far, and it's only the 25th. So ample opportunity for overtime, and with it being only a 9 person department, single station, I know all of the people. Like, I've worked on all 3 of the crews full time, so I know all of the people so well that it just feels like another day. It doesn't feel like a difference.
Yeah.
I don't know if your guys have a difference. Like, if you have A, B, and C crews, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Does it feel different between them?
Not really, because I just see it as like working at Station 8, and we all intermingle so much throughout the shifts anyway that I might be working my normal shift, but it's like half the guys and girls are from other shifts anyway. So it all seems the same to me for the most part. So I concur with what you said.
Yeah, shift yesterday was a sergeant from A crew and the firefighter from B shift, and then me. I'm on C shift. So it was just everybody from different shifts, and that's how it is. A lot of people take trades and kind of extend our days off. So we kind of work with everybody so much that we just kind of know each other so well at this point.
C shift hard, baby. I'm a C shift too.
Yeah, C shift's where it's at. I've been on B shift for the last year, so I have ran down and trash talked C shift for the last year. But now I'm back, and I started on C shift, so I know how important it is to making sure that the firehouse runs successfully. We wouldn't be nearly as good of a department without C shift, so I understand.
Yeah, you got to talk everybody, no matter what.
I guess that's nationwide that the 3 shifts kind of trash talk each other and throw jabs whenever they can.
Yeah. Cool, man.
So talk to us a little bit about your business, kind of what made you start the Williams Key and what it's used for.
Yeah. So I'll share a little bit of my background of how it kind of came to be. Before I got hired in the fire service, I was out here in LA on my own. When I turned 18, my family left me and they went back to Haiti. I stayed in LA to pursue firefighting. So it's hard to live out here. There's big bills, and being on your own with like no family and stuff, I had to really hustle to make things work. So I got into a trade. I started doing construction, specifically as a carpenter, installing doors, and did some general construction, but it eventually turned into commercial construction. And I worked for a door crew company and I worked for them for a couple of years, where we're installing thousands of doors at big colleges and oil refineries and firehouses sometimes, police stations sometimes, but a lot of commercial work. And it got to the point where I know how locks and doors work really well. I almost have an x-ray vision now on the job. I know what is supposed to be behind that door, but there's no absolutes, so you never know what gizmo somebody might have installed that you weren't expecting. But I have a really good sense of like how to get through a door, and I probably have like 6 different ways, least invasive to most invasive now once I'm on the job. But as a door carpenter, it's a specialty trade, so you got probably a couple hundred tools you're pushing around in your tool cart, and one of those tools you might use once every couple hundred doors. It's just like, it's rare, but when you need it, you need it. So I was always kind of making stuff for myself, making my own tools, things to make my life quicker, a little bit easier. And I learned how to lockpick and knew how to troubleshoot these doors really well. So at one point I made what's now known as the Williams key out of a framing square, but it's used to open up doors without doing damage, because installing these doors, the worth of these things, they end up costing a couple grand anytime you put in a door. So to just break for no reason I don't like that, so if I can get in without doing damage, I'm definitely going to try that first. I can usually get in a door quicker without doing damage than it takes for somebody with irons or a rotary saw who is going to do damage. But it's also call dependent. If there's a fire, it's getting forced, if there's a fire. But if it's anything else, I'll give it a shot with one of my tools. And I make a bunch of tools, but the Williams key is kind of what got me on the map. And once I got hired, I had my bag of tricks, I'd carry with me on the rig. And as a rookie, you're not trying to flex on anybody, but you want to make sure you're like a good steward of your craft and being the best you can be. So in West Hollywood, tons of every shift I run into a new type of door, but lots of apartment gates and elevator doors and equipment room doors and residential, everything. There's so much opportunity to mess with doors in my district. I was getting tons of practice. And with that, my crew members were seeing me pull out this thing that's the Williams key now. And that was kind of my go-to. And that was getting us through tons of stuff every shift. And before long, the guys are like, they can never give you compliments. So they're like, hey man, that stupid tool you keep pulling out, you mind making me one of those things? So, and it takes a while to make just one. You got to grind it out and everything and make sure your specs are right. But I made a couple for some of the guys. And before long, because our firehouse is so big, like lots of people were coming through seeing this tool work. And, on any given month, I'll probably meet 100 firemen, 100 new firemen that picked up an overtime or did a trade at my stations. It's getting exposure. And before long, 20 people wanted the key, and I'm like, I can't make 20 by hand. So I ended up outsourcing to a fabricator who was able to make the tool for me. We were having trouble with like burrs on the edges of the tool, like with it being made out of metal, it was like cutting people and stuff. And so we found that a black powder coat kind of fixed that. And then with it being black, I was able to laser engrave them. And this came a little bit later, but once there became an interest, I had to sell I was paying to have these made, so I had to sell them to the guys. And I wasn't making money off them at first, but I just wanted people to be better at their craft and, just be a better firefighter and maybe save a life, maybe get in quicker, maybe save grandma $2,000 from breaking her door down, or if God forbid we break down the wrong door on the wrong call, that's a mistake that somebody has to be responsible for. So hopefully preventing some stuff like that. So eventually, once I made the 20, it kind of exploded, and then 100 people wanted them. And then it was just like, oh man, this is turning into something. Made a website, made a Instagram, social media. And back then things were more apt to go viral, especially in this niche. There weren't as many tools like this out yet. Now there's a lot, but I had like a lot of videos were getting 1 million views, and shoot, then that really sells tools. Like if 1 million people see it and want it. So I made the logo. I started laser engraving the logo on the key, and then I left the backside blank where people could custom engrave their name or their station number or whatever they wanted on there. And I think that really helped to sell it because us firefighters, we love customization. We like putting our name on stuff. They turn into good gifts. So they were great Proby gifts or promotional gifts or just crew gifts in general, Christmas gifts. And then it took off from there. I've sold over 30,000 at this point. They've gone to all 50 states. Pretty much every major fire department in the U.S., somebody has one. And then we've also sold to about 40 countries internationally. So it's really out there, and it helped. The Williams Key helped kind of build the platform for my business. And after the money was coming in and like the interest and stuff, I was able to make more tools and kind of expand on the idea of the Williams Key. Like the standard Williams Key is 12 inches long, solid piece of metal with a 9-inch handle. And then I made a folding version, and that became pretty popular because now guys can like fold them up, put them in their turnout pants. And then with that, people wanted a tactical case to hold it in. So had a tactical case, Molly style case made, and that's like super popular now. And then I made a giant 35-inch Williams Key for like big gates, and these things are getting behind like the anti-vandal plates. Like that's one of the big selling points of the tool is the ability to toggle the slam latch on if it's being protected by an anti-vandal plate, because the whole point of the plate is to keep you from messing with it, but the Williams Key can still defeat it. So that's like what makes it so cool and quick and desirable. So then it went 35-inch version solid piece to a folding version of the 35-inch, because the 35-inch solid was really hard for me to ship. It was just a nightmare. I hated anytime I got an order. I was like, oh man. I was always telling people, don't order them. You know, we have them, but just I don't like packaging them. So the fix for that was making a folding version that I could fit in a poster tube, and that was way easier. And so I was happy to sell those again once I figured that out. But then other companies wanted to partner with me on stuff, so I've got a couple products like the firefighter swipe tool. If I don't know if you heard of that, but it's a piece of plastic. It's good for wrapping around inward swinging doors and kind of bypassing the lock, where the Williams Key is better for outward swinging doors. So firefighter swipe tool, I'm friends with the owner of that, and we make a version that's for Williams Key called the inward door slip knife, and it fits into a little M canister. I know your viewers can't see this, but I'll show you real quick. It fits into something like this, sticks in your pocket, and then it holds a piece of plastic inside, which looks like this, and that just wraps around the frame of a door, and you can like snag a latch with it. So now we have bundles, so people buy those together with a case, and then we have multiple ways to capture your progress once you've opened the door up with wedges. We have, if you're familiar with door jam, we have a Williams Key version of door jam, which is a rubber band that wraps around your door to hold it open. And then I started making my own wedge, the Williams wedge, which glows in the dark. And I'd never seen a glow in the dark wedge before. And typically I would not be able to sell you a wedge if you had never heard of the Williams Key company. But because I have that platform and a trusted brand, now people come to the website with a shopping cart and they load it up. And so now you're getting your Williams Key and your case and your way to hold it open with your door wedge, and there's a couple other products on there too. And then we got the apparel line, we got t-shirts, hats, stickers. We just had fun with it. So it's really grown. It's been cool to hear all the stories of lives being saved. Like cops will hit me up and they're like, yeah, I prevented somebody from jumping because I was able to get into their house covertly and talk them down. Or I was able to render CPR and make a save on a welfare, where normally we would have waited for the building manager to come bring the keys. But because I had the Williams Key, I gave it a try. I was able to open the door and we found a viable CPR patient and made the save. So I get the feedback from these people that have the key, and that's really rewarding for me. Like being able to know that people are doing better at their job, making a difference, saving lives. And yeah, I work hard at this, and I feel like I haven't slept for a couple years because of how busy this has made my life. But it's worth it.
That's awesome. So if I was to go into my firehouse next shift and sell this idea to the captain to put it on the truck, what should I tell him?
Yeah, well, if you've never heard of a Williams key before, I think the biggest selling point is they're pretty affordable and they're pretty small. So you're going to find a place on your truck that they fit, and you're going to avoid, it's like a good customer service tool, to be honest. Like, you're going to avoid lots of damage on the calls that you're going on, and it's going to work well for maybe some of your public, your welfare checks, your medical stuff. If you have apartments, it's great on the outward swinging gates. It's good on the elevator control rooms. If you end up doing elevator rescues, everybody's district has its own types of calls. I think, yeah, it's an easy sell, especially if you show on the videos. There's hundreds of videos. People send me videos being Johnny on the spot with a tool all the time, and I love it. It's great content, and it's a simple tool and a simple idea, and it makes sense once you see it. So I think he wouldn't need very much convincing unless the budget is tight or something like that, you know?
So we have a really large elderly population in my district. We have multiple different nursing homes. We have Section 8 housing specific for the elderly. We have multiple apartment complexes that are specifically designed for people who are not mobile, not able to get around. And so a big problem that we have in our district is these older people will hit their medical emergency pendant because they're having a medical emergency, and then they're not able to get up to come unlock the door. So we have problems of having to try to use like slip knives and stuff like that to get in, and we've on multiple occasions had to force the door. And sometimes we're wrong when we force the door, and then we have to pay to replace it. And obviously, the apartment's paying to replace it. So we're always looking for something innovative to get into these people's houses without trying to create as much damage. So I'm definitely going to take this back to my firehouse and tell them, like, hey, look, this is a product that has proven results for many, many years. That is something that we definitely want to throw on the truck. We use, you know what a Big Easy is? I'm assuming you guys have that out west. Yep. So we have a specific compartment in the truck that has the Big Easy in it. So we have perfect place to fit it on the truck. So I'm sure that once I show them videos and everything like that, they're going to absolutely love it and want to put, even if I have to pay for it out of pocket to put it on the truck, if it's something that's going to better help the taxpayers and also save our butt a little bit from having to take somebody's door just for a grandma fell and needs picked up, then it's obviously it's an investment that's going to save the district some money. So it definitely sounds like a product that has a very, very important place in the fire service.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's not a miracle tool. Like, it is a tool for the toolbox, because there's so many different types of doors out there. You have outward, inward, different types of locks, deadbolts, panic hardware. So I like your Big Easy bag setup where you can just collect different tools in there that could be for different types of things. I did the same thing on my truck. I got a rifle bag, like a sniper bag, and I started loading it with like long-handled, respectful entry devices. So yeah, we have a Big Easy in there. We've got the air wedges. I've got a under the door tool, which is pretty cool. If you've never heard of that, look it up. That one takes some practice, but I've used it a bunch of times. We got a tool in there for garage doors, for grabbing the emergency release knob on a garage door. We've got Slim Jims, Williams key stuff in there for sure. But yeah, there's never going to be like, hey, this just opens everything unless you're doing damage. Right. Your open everything device is probably your rotary saw. But as far as the respectful stuff goes, yeah, you gotta know how to identify your doors. That's part of your training, and then know the right tool to have, and then have that tool. But yeah, I think you're going to do great at sales, because you sold it to me. Now I want to buy one.
We have a pretty good collection. Like you said, the sniper bag thing, that's exactly what we have our Big Easy in. We've kind of taken the big easy and the stuff that was already in there, and then we've added stuff. Like we'll go on a run and we'll say, man, if we would have had this specific tool to get into this, it'd have been really nice. And then we go and we pitch the idea to the deputy chief, and then next month we have it in the mail. So we definitely have a collection of tools that we have found for specific things. And we understand, just like everybody else does, that not every tool is perfect. I think this, I'm kind of more senior in my career. I've got a couple of years on, got some probies that are coming on underneath me. And whenever I teach them something, whether it be a technique to force a door or something like that, I tell them like, hey, this is 100% not the only way to do something. This is just another tool for the toolbox. This is just another way that it could possibly be done. So I think that's a big thing whenever people buy tools for the fire services. Hey, it's not going to work every single time, but if it gives us a heads up and gives us a better chance at a specific type of door, then it's something important that we need to keep on the truck.
Yeah. It's also good for kind of like deductive reasoning. Like if you try a tool and you like hit a deadbolt with it or whatever, you're like, oh shoot, okay, we got a deadbolt. Now we know which direction to go with this versus like, oh, why won't this work? Well, it gives you some information. So sometimes I'll use that piece of plastic just to check and see if it has a deadbolt. And then if it does, I'll like kind of change my approach. So yeah, all that stuff is great. I will share one more thing with you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying 90% of the time our slap knife or whatever the official name of it's called, it works. We get in there and we open the door. But I mean, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes we have to go different routes.
Yeah. So I know, again, your listeners can't see this, but I'll describe it. I include a sample of these. It's a door hanger with all the tools. So this is an invention. I know it looks simple, but this is an idea I came up with where it's a door hanger you leave on your customer's door after you've made entry if they're not home. And it just gives them a heads up that they didn't get broken into. Because if somebody comes home and your crew has been inside their house to like turn off a smoke detector or something, they weren't there, but they see like footprints, or maybe the door is broken, or maybe a chair is misplaced. It's unsettling because they think they got broken into. Like we don't tell people we made access into their home. They just have to like figure out, that it happened, or maybe they don't notice. But if they do notice, you'd be concerned, if you're like, what happened to my house, like while I was gone. So this door hanger is just like a nice courtesy notification saying like, hey, 911 was here. We broke your screen, or we did no damage, but we had to turn off your smoke alarm. So there's nothing to be worried about. And then you can leave a note too if you want, like incident number, or you can call the station if you have any questions, or just leave that blank if you don't want to be bothered by the person. But I sell these by the thousands. Like we'll put a department's logo on it and customize it to your department. And then you just hang them on the door once you leave, and it's a good way to just leave a note. It's professional, and it's a cheap, nice little courtesy for taxpayers,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely would have a problem if I came home and something in my house was displaced and I didn't know that the fire department was there. So I'm not really sure what my department's policy is on that. Obviously, for my department, it's kind of a captain level issue that he's the one who has to figure that out. So I'm really not sure what we do. But I can definitely see how that has a place to let people know, hey, we were in your house. There is no damage. We had to go in to turn something off. So you said departments will pay and have their logos and everything like that put on?
Yeah. Yep. They'll buy like 1,000 pack. That's kind of the minimum that we sell if we put your logo on it. If you want less, they just come stock, like a standard design. But if you want your logo on it, you got to commit to like a big pack, because we custom design it for you and stuff.
Yeah, I guess 1,000 pack really doesn't sound like that much. Like if you threw 100 of those on your engine at a time, 1,000 of them is not going to last that long. Well, for my department, it's going to last a long time because we only make like 2,500 runs a year, and we're not breaking into people's houses every day. But for a department like you guys, and I can definitely see how having 1,000 of those isn't really that big of a number.
Yeah, we're doing, I forget what our call volume is. Let me see if I can look it up. But Yeah, we're doing a lot of calls every year, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Let me see
the
here.
Midwest, we're pretty. This area, 2,500 runs is kind of the top end. We have departments around us that have more stations than us that are running less calls. So we stay pretty busy. Now we have our no hitters. This is like my second. Last shift was like my second ever time with a no hitter, not making a run an entire 24-hour shift. But that's not very common.
Yeah, that's happened to me before, but yeah, it's pretty rare. Okay, so I just looked up the call volume for the year. It's about 400,000 calls a year
Yeah.
between all of our stations. So there's room.
Wow.
There's room for 1,000 door hangers in there somewhere.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm sure that that one of your stations is probably having to make entry in someone's house every day.
Yeah, for sure.
That's insane.
It's happening right
400,000.
now. Happening probably 20 times as we speak right now.
Yeah. Right. So you guys, your department go to a lot of fire. Like, do you guys know what your fire based is? I don't EMS. I probably the 400,000 is probably a lot of that's EMS.
Yeah, and I only know this because I just pulled it up, but we do about 10,000 fires a year, and then 300,000 medical responses.
So you talked about having two paramedics on a squad. Is a squad for you guys an ambulance? Because in my area, a squad is what we call an ambulance.
Okay, so no, we private contract our ambulance transports, and the squad only holds the paramedics, and they will hop in the ambulance if they do a follow-up call. And then one paramedic will drive the squad and follow the ambulance, and then the other paramedic will be in the back with the patient. If it's very critical, sometimes both paramedics will be back with the patient, and a firefighter will jump on the squad and just follow them and end up being detached from his or her crew until they get reunited after the call.
Yeah, that's kind of we don't like we are county based EMS, so the county handles EMS, and then our specific fire department if we make a run with them. So we go on every single EMS run they go on, we go with them. And then if we have to hop in the back, like during CPR, during an important run, it's their paramedic. We're just kind of an extra set of hands, or we drive the ambulance for them sometimes. And then we run the county's backup. So two people will hop off of the engine. So we run 5 on shift every day. 2 of those people will hop off the engine and hop on an ambulance if the county's out of ambulances, which doesn't happen all the time. But it definitely throws a wrench in staffing levels when you go from running 5 people on staff to only having 3 because 2 people have to grab an ambulance.
Yeah. I know LA City has their own ambulance. I think we should have our own ambulance, but just the way our contracts worked out, we private contract. But I think as far as our budget goes, we'd make more money if we transported ourselves. I think that would be good for our department because we've always been in like our rig. We have a lot of old rigs and stuff, so like we could definitely use some more money. Our truck is over 20 years old, our ladder truck.
Wow.
So it breaks every shift, but we have a mechanic there fixing it. So breaks and gets fixed almost every shift.
Yeah, we have a 2021 brand new mid-mount 100-foot tower ladder, and then our engine is 2015. So we're always rolling in pretty new rigs. So we're pretty luxurious. Now our
You probably
reserve
even have AC in there, don't you?
Yeah, I'm saying the AC is so good that if we're at a fire and the engineer doesn't turn the AC off before he turns the pump on and gets out to catch the plug, like when you get in after the fire, you are freezing cold, like you're miserable.
Dang,
So that's a good AC
that
we
sounds
have.
terrible. No,
Now,
definitely
our
wouldn't want
reserve,
that. That's brutal.
our reserve engine does not have AC, or well, it didn't have AC. We just fixed it. So our engine, our frontline engine, was down for like a month in June. So it was like 90 degrees outside, and we were rolling around in our reserve engine, which is like a 2005, and it did not have AC, and we were miserable. So I understand your pain.
Yeah, I like being drenched in sweat before I ever get to the fire, before I ever get off the rig.
We don't have that
I'm like,
problem.
oh, it's going to be hot.
We got good AC. So your guys' primary frontline apparatus is 20 years old.
Yep. At least our truck. We have some newer engines and stuff, but our ladder truck is a 99.
Wow. We had a 2000 that we sold and bought a brand new ladder. So I remember when I first got on the department as a pro, we had an older ladder about the same year, but we're pretty luxurious. We have a really nice ladder. Kind of it's dummy proof, so like it will not allow the ladder to even touch itself, so you can't accidentally hit the side of the truck. I'm sure in your guys'
Yeah.
2000 ladder, you guys can do some serious damage.
We have a halo around the tiller bucket, but you can still crunch the cab. Like if you push it, if you throw it over the front of the cab, you can still hit it. Like you can still, yeah, you can still make mistakes with it for sure.
Yeah, so ours will like you can obviously hit other stuff, but you can't hit the truck itself. And it has some extendable lights on the side of it. You can't hit those either. So it's pretty, it kind of saves itself. And also, it doesn't allow you to move onto the side. Like, I'm sure that you guys short jack. Can you short jack your guys' tiller?
Yeah. Well, we have to override it. So, yeah, it won't let us do that unless we override it. But we tend to override all the time depending on what the scenario.
So ours allows us to short jack it and then just won't allow us to go off of the off side. So it'll allow us to go off of the fully extended side, but won't allow us to go off the not extended side.
Oh,
So
nice. I like that.
Definitely luxurious.
Yeah, it makes me jealous.
So
well, I will say there are some newer trucks in our department, but there's 32 like truck stations out there, so it's like we haven't been first up for a truck in I guess 20 years.
That's insane. Do you drive the tiller? What's your bid on your truck?
So I'm assigned to the truck just as one of the firefighters on our truck, and there's 3 of them. So I do tiller. I kind of rotate between the 3 positions are the tillerman, the top side, and the inside. And inside is like the forcible entry guru. So that's kind of my favorite because that's my niche.
Yeah.
But I think tillering is the most fun, getting the ride in the back and whipping around. And then top side is probably our most involved position because you're getting out, you're doing a lot of the job a captain would do at a normal station. Like you're getting out, you're doing a hot lap, you're getting on the radio, you're giving a report, you're throwing ladders, you're bringing chainsaws, and then you're cutting the first hole on the roof for ventilation. So you're really getting worked in that top side position. Same can be said for inside. Like if you have a lot of forcible entry needs, you can even have like a group assigned to you as inside for forcible entry. You're like, hey, we have a lot of work. I need a crew assigned to me, and we're going to tackle this whole floor of doors, and make sure they all get opened up or whatever. So the tiller position is kind of like, it's not easy among the 3 jobs. Like I think you're doing the least amount of work because you're helping your engineer throw the aerial ladder, and then you're getting tools up to the roof. And then you're usually the second saw, but you're not running around as much as topside or inside would do typically.
So you talked about light force. So that's whenever you guys run a 2-man engine that is tails, your guys' tiller.
Correct. Yeah. So that's what we would call light force, is a truck and an engine that are married up and they go everywhere together and they get assignments together.
Gotcha. Okay. So we run the opposite of that. So we run a frontline engine, and then we have a ladder truck that's staffed with 2 that follows us. So I don't know how. I guess it's not really that similar, but that's kind of whenever you see 2 follow, that kind of.
Do you ever split up? Like if you had a medical, would just the engine go?
Yeah. So just the engine would go if there was a medical.
Okay. So that's probably the difference. Like we never split up, no matter what, even if. So we have a frontline engine and they'll run the medicals and other stuff, but like they get a lot of medicals. So if they're out on a medical and a second medical comes in, then the light force will take it, but we'll still run as a truck and an engine to that medical. So yeah, we can show up real deep on like public assist or something because there'll be 7 of us on the light force and then 2 ambulance operators on top of that. And then 2 paramedics on top of that if it's an ALS call, and then sheriffs if it is warranted. So you can end up with like 15 people in your house just for like your kid fell down or whatever,
So our engine goes on like medical runs and stuff like that. And then our ladder would not. So our ladder would stay back the entire time. And then car accidents and stuff like that, the engine and the ladder would go if it's in the urban area. If it's in the suburban area, or if it's in the more rural area, we have a kind of a utility pickup truck that the people that are on the ladder can hop into the utility truck and use it if the ladder isn't applicable for the situation. And then sometimes if we just have basic medical runs, like grandma fell and need helped up, then instead of taking the entire engine and ladder, they would just hop in this utility truck and they could go make the run on runs that don't need more than two people. Because you get two people coming from the ambulance, so we'll just send two people in that utility truck, and we can handle 99% of those basic medical runs. Now, if it's something like a heart attack, difficulty breathing, anything like that, then the engine company does go. The difference, I'm not sure how your guys' run matrix is. We go literally every time EMS goes, we go. So we'll go to grandma stubbed her toe, and we'll also go to CPR in progress. We go to every single EMS run in our district.
Okay. Yeah. So we kind of split it up, and that's just specific to our station and how we've worked it out. Because dispatch will tell us one thing, and then we'll tell dispatch, like, hey, truck's going to take this one. So our truck will take like the public assists, like fallen and can't get up, just to take some of the load off the engine. Because the engine's pretty busy. It can run like 12 to 20 a day sometimes. And we'll take the public assist, the fire alarms, and then all the obviously all the fires. Everybody will go to those, and the car accidents. And
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know. I think mostly the medical stuff we do is just slop over or a public assist.
Gotcha. We do it so like if two people, normally it's the people on the ladder, if they take a basic medical run in the utility truck, then if another utility or another medical run comes out at the same time, then the engine just has to take it with the three people. And we have a lot of calls that overlap. I think like 20% of our runs overlap with another run. So there's a lot of times where we'll have two people in a utility truck on one medical run, and then we'll have three people in the engine on another. And then sometimes our operation chief even has to pick up medical runs whenever we're all out on a run.
Oh, wow.
We vary a lot. Like I said, we had a no-hitter last shift. A couple shifts before that, we had maybe 3 or 4, and then sometimes we'll have 17. So it's not not every day you're making 10 runs, but more often than not, you're making at least 5 or 6. I know that doesn't sound nearly as busy as you guys, but for us in our suburban area, that's pretty steady.
Yeah. No, I would be content with 5 or 6 a day. That's perfect for me. It's just like you're staying busy, so you're not getting bored, but you're not getting destroyed every single shift.
Yeah. How big is your guys' district? Like Station 8's first in?
Oh, it's pretty small, actually. I mean, it's probably like a square mile. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's a grid.
101 6 square miles.
Dude. Wow.
So, yeah.
So that's kind of like our desert. That's like our desert stations. They cover just tons of distance, and you'll see a fire start header going in the distance, and then by the time you get to it, 25 minutes, 30 minutes later, it's out, and like you never even made it to that fire, or it's burned to the ground. Like nobody ever even put it out; it just burned itself out. So yeah, some of our districts are really, really spread out. Sounds like yours is, but mine is not. we can get to anything in our district in like a minute.
It's nothing for us to have 10, 15-minute response times. That's kind of why we have to run that utility truck as a kind of what you would say, like how you guys run your squad, is because like if we take the engine all the way to one side of our district, then it could possibly take us 30 minutes to get to the other side of the district if there was a fire. So we have some long responses. I've been in the back seat on the way to a first in fire, and it took us 25 minutes to get there. And we arrived on scene first due.
That's crazy.
So we have some really spread out places, and we cover mutual aid for all of the volunteer departments that surround us. So we're first due to a lot of their district too. So it's nothing for us to have a 20-minute response time and still be the first engine company on scene.
Wow. I feel like if I had responses that long regularly, I would be like getting on Google Maps and like getting a game plan together, like an aerial view, and like seeing what kind of exposures I'm going to have, where my hydrant's at, like all that stuff. I feel like that
The
would give me
problem is
time
when
to
we
like
get
really plan.
that 20-minute response time, we normally don't have hydrants or anything like that in those areas. So we have to bring our own water.
Oh shoot.
Which I know you guys probably have to do that whenever you guys are fighting brush fires. So we have to bring.
We'll have like a tanker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of our tankers are like 3,000 gallons, and they'll show up and supply us, and then they'll just kind of leapfrog water to us throughout the whole time. And then our engines hold 500 gallons, and we got to make that last.
So our tanker rolls. So we have a pretty nice section of kind of like an urban suburban area in the middle of our district, and then we have rural that's around that, kind of like a circle. So we know that anything outside of a specific zone, we have to take the tanker instead of the ladder. So we have it pretty well mapped out in our heads that we know specific addresses need these specific trucks instead of the ladder. So it's not a problem for us to have to bring our own water. We have it pretty down to a science when it comes to tanker operations. Because for
Nice.
all of the volunteer agencies around us, that's all they have is tanker operations. They don't have any hydrants.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's kind
We're
of
not fortunate.
that's a different ball game from what I'm used to. But that's cool. You know, that's why I like talking shop with guys like you. And I've been on a few podcasts at this point, and it's one of my favorite things is just talking shop and learning about, you know, how other people conduct their business. And, you know, they're firefighters in every state and every city across the world for the most part. And we have that in common. We're all brothers and sisters and in this big family, but each place is way different, or at least it can be, you know, there's a lot to learn out there.
What's your guys' like first box? How many people you getting on a box?
So, man, it changes because there's so many different like categories of fires that we have. Because there's like single story residential, you have your apartment, you have your commercial, you have your high rise, we have a brush A and a brush B, we have grass fires, and then it goes like first alarm, second alarm, third alarm. Typically, let's see if I can pull it up here. It might take a sec. We'll get a truck on pretty much any fire and like at least 2 engines, a chief. We have an app that we use because we have so many of them. I can't find it right now. Oh, here we go. Response matrix. Yeah, there's like 15 types of fires in this little thing. And then with each fire, you have like first, second, third alarm. So first alarm on a structure fire, 4 engines, a truck. This says EST. We don't have those anymore. That's basically like a patrol, a squad, and a battalion chief. So we'll just say 4 engines, a truck, a chief, and some medics for your first alarm.
No matter the size of the fire or what type of fire it is, we pretty much have just 5 people. Like we have volunteers, like I told you that we have like the volunteers that surround us. They'll respond. We receive mutual aid from them too, but we've been to fires where we get 0 response from the volunteer departments around us. So it's nothing for us to have a working structure fire where we have just 5 people.
That sounds fun until it comes time for overhaul. Now, do you guys do vertical ventilation? Will you cut holes in roofs?
It kind of depends on the tactic and who's in who the chief is in charge. Our deputy chief of operations, because we don't have battalion chiefs, we have Monday through Friday fire chief, Monday through Friday deputy chief of operations, and a Monday through Friday training chief, and then the captains run the shift. But if the deputy chief of operations is running command, then most of the time he just chooses horizontal vertical. But if the training chief, if he's the one running, he likes vertical ventilation because he works full time at City of Indianapolis Fire Department. So it kind of depends on who's in charge of the scene. I have not done any vertical ventilation in my career. I've done horizontal ventilation. Horizontal ventilation. I've done hydraulic ventilation, but I've never got on a roof and cut a hole outside of doing
Okay.
it in training.
Yeah, I know a lot of departments don't. There's like a safety factor involved with it, and it can be very dangerous. And we've killed guys doing it. We're big on it. My station, especially, like we have roof props at our station that we practice. We cut. If a new guy shows up, we'll go over all the cuts with him. And yeah, it's like we're trying to cut a hole every fire if we can. But yeah, that's just part of our
For
ops, though.
for us, I think it's less of a safety concern, and I think it's more of a we just don't have the manpower to dedicate to the roof. So if we can just pop a hole in a window or something like that in the fire room and get some ventilation, then that's what we're going to do because we just don't have the amount of people to be able to put something on the roof. Like for us, I know a lot of departments, like the engineer, works really, really hard for 5 minutes and has to catch water and do all that stuff. As soon as the engineer finishes that 5 minutes of catching water and all that, he then has to throw ladders. He then has to ventilate the fire room and stuff like that. So we all, from the start of the fire to the end of the fire, have to work. As soon as we
Yeah.
get, I ride the nozzle seat a lot. Here more recently, obviously, I told you I have probies coming in, so they ride the nozzle seat when they get there. But as soon as we finish putting a fire out, we immediately start overhaul. Like we don't come back out and then go back in. We just start poking holes, and start tearing stuff off the wall. We don't get the luxury of having like 30 more people behind us.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I hate overhauling. It's just like all the fun is done, and now you're just working your butt off to like gut the place, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's not like fighting the fire.
It's nothing for us to go through 4 bottles on a fire.
Oh wow.
Normally when we get back to the station, we have to change every bottle on the engine because we carry sub bottles in the sides. So normally we have to refill every single one of them.
Okay.
And
Yeah, we carry a
sometimes
large cache on our truck, and they all get used every fire for the most part.
the engineer even has to pack up sometimes. So we we all kind of go to work. If it's a crazy bad fire, sometimes even the ops chief will have to pack up and help hose at the door. And that's not
Nice.
as common as it was when I first started because we've increased. We went from having 3 to having 4 to now we run 5. So we've increased staffing and we're hiring more. So we've had that luxury of getting some more hands. But when I first started, it was nothing to see the fire chief, the deputy chief have a pack on going to work.
I
And
think
that
if I
irritates
was a
me.
chief, I'd want that, like get my hands dirty a little bit from time to time.
Well, yeah, you say that now, but you're still younger in fireman
That's
age.
true.
So whenever you're 50 or 60, I don't know how old chiefs are at LA County, but my chiefs are in their 50s. So whenever you're
Yeah.
50, you're probably not going to want to continue to get your hands dirty.
Yeah. I mean, my captain is 54 and he's in better shape than I am. So the guy, and
My
he was a
50.
chief. He promoted to chief, didn't like it, and he's like, I'm going back to being a captain. So that I think he's the only guy I've ever heard of that's done that, but that's like a pretty hard flex in my book. I think that's pretty cool.
The
But
A6
yeah,
captain, he promoted to deputy chief and then demoted himself to go back on the truck.
yeah. Some guys miss it, like
Yeah.
I became a firefighter for a reason. I wanted to fight fire. I didn't know the medical stuff was as much as it was until I got on the floor. I signed up to do the firefighting, and that'll change as my body breaks down and I get older, I'm sure. But for now, I'm just like, I love the job. I want to keep doing it as long as I can. As far as the like hands-on with the tools and the firefighting skills and that sort of thing.
I think everybody who's a fireman wants to do. I say everybody. I think some people. I guess it's not as big of a population as I probably think it is, but some people just want to collect a paycheck. But I think majority of people who are in the job want to do the job, want to go to work. Good firemen like to do work, like to prove their
Oh
worth.
yeah. I never knew firemen made a good salary before I got on. And that was never a motivation for me. And even now, it's like, it seemed good before I got on, but guys are still like out here, at least guys have trouble even buying a house or anything. Like it's so, the cost of living out here is so expensive. Like that's why I have 2 jobs, you know, like most guys got to have 2 jobs to make ends meet. So it's a good paycheck, but for where we live, it's like, it's still tough to get by. But people ask me with my business, like, oh, can you retire yet? You know, are you making good enough money to retire? And I tell them, like, even if I could, like, I'm a firefighter at heart. It's in my blood. Like, I'd still want to show up and be a firefighter, no matter how many millions of dollars I have or whatever. Like, I still want to be a firefighter, and that's my passion, you know.
I don't know a single person that works in my department that doesn't have a second job. I think everybody does something on the side. And like I said, we have part-time people, and all of the part-time people that we have are full-time firefighters somewhere else. So
Oh, wow.
I think everybody has that second job. I've got a second job. My captain has a second job. My sergeant has a second job. I think everybody has a second job they do. When I first got on the job, our pay was not very good. And I got really lucky that our pay increased to very good standards after I got on the job. But when I first started, we were kind of struggling with the pay a little bit. But I'm still pretty young. I just bought my first house, so I'm definitely grateful to do the job. Now, I was a volunteer before I started full time. I still volunteer, so I would do the job even if I wasn't getting paid. There's just something amazing about packing up and going to fight fire that kind of makes you forget about all of the stupid EMS stuff that you're getting paid to do too.
Yeah, one fire can make up for a lot of BS, you know, that you had to endure. Can fix everything, even
man,
camaraderie wise.
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
if you're having beef with your crew or whatever, or something is like, just like not going right, and then you guys all get a fire, you're good after that. You know, it fixes everything.
Yeah, it fixes everything unless I don't know how you guys do off-duty stuff. If you can respond off-duty at my department, so like if it's a working fire or something like that, and you just happen to be around, like, a lot of our guys don't live in this area. So like I don't even live in the area that I work in. I live like 20-something minutes away. But some of the guys who do live in the area, if we catch a working fire, they'll just show up and grab a brush truck or something like that, and then just show up on the fire. So that has caused a little bit of turmoil. The A crew, one of the guys from A crew will show up off duty to a C crew fire and then trash talk you at shift change the next day. So you're like, yeah, I'll show up on your fire and put it out for you.
No,
Sometimes the fire will be.
Yeah, we can't do that. But if we're like coming on duty and the guys are going off duty and they're still at the station, we get a structure, like everybody's hopping on. So like in that sense, yeah, but you can't like show up from home and try and fight a fire. That won't fly.
Now we can't do like we showed up for like a car accident or something like that. We would actually get in trouble. But structure fire, we were a volunteer department 6 years ago, so we still kind of have some of the remnants of that. I won't keep your time anymore. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a real honor to interview you and get to know you and get to know kind of about your business.
Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, absolutely.